Let's begin this morning with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, our beloved Guru Deva, Paramahansa Yoganandaji, saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, we lovingly bow before you all. Great Masters, help us to take advantage of the perfect opportunity before us to perceive you as you are, formless, yet at the heart of every atom of creation. Help us to feel your presence within and without. We are thine. We are longing to be one with thee. Take our hand and bring us home. Om. Peace. Amen. Good morning, everyone. I would like to speak a little bit this morning about this extraordinary time that we're in, not of the pandemic, that too, maybe, but of Dwapara Yuga. Because, of course, there's no accidents. It's part of why Yogananda came to us as he did at this particular time. And it is certainly why each of us reincarnated when we did. So we're all meant to be here in this very moment. And I'd like to reflect on what that means to all of us. But before I do, I'd like to send out an invitation to all of you to send me an email, if you feel to, about any topic that you might like to hear me talk about, or any questions you have that you'd like me to answer, or try to answer. The email is shanti@anandapaloalto.org. And I'd be happy to respond in one of these talks that I'm giving. I realize that these talks will probably go on for a long time, because I think what's happening for us with the pandemic is that we're being given a perfect opportunity to move into this consciousness of Dwapara Yuga. In other words, we're being given an opportunity to move into this age of energy that is about us realizing God and everything that exists as formless, less and less with form, and more as formless, which is really what Dwapara is. It is the age of energy in this 24,000 year cycle of time that keeps repeating itself. In about 1700, the year 1700, we moved into a transition, moving us from Kali Yuga, which is an age of matter, of form, of a little bit of dullness of thought, if you will, into this age of Dwapara, of being much more about energy, less about form. Actually, of personally, each of us being much more energized, much more creative, much more willing and able interestingly, to become all of who and what we were meant to be. It's an interesting time for so many ways. I was listening to some talks that Swami Kriyananda gave decades ago, actually, and he was talking about Paramahansa Yogananda coming when he did, because ultimately he would be recognized as the guru or the avatar of Dwapara Yuga. But he also said something very interesting. He said that Paramahansa Yogananda's legacy would really come into play, would be more widely recognized and put into play after these very hard times that Yogananda predicted would come to us. Now, of course, we have no idea whether this is what Yogananda was talking about, but I realize that it's certainly hard enough times that we could take note and that we can all be readying ourselves as devotees of this great avatar to say, okay, this is what Swamiji said. This is a moment where Master's teachings would even come more into play right now in very hard times. And if you think about it, of course, it makes perfect sense. People are needing something at so many different levels. They're desperately needing hope, which of course Yogananda brought. They're needing new ways of looking at almost everything right now. Education, relationships, how we worship. Swami said in a talk again, at least 15, 20 years ago at least, I don't remember which talk I heard him say this in, but he said he could see the time coming when churches and sermons, as we're used to them now, again in that fixed form in a building, being delivered to just the audience there, would be a thing of the past. He said people will come to recognize that where we worship is within. It reminded me of a rather extraordinary experience that I had some years ago now. I was up at the Ananda meditation retreat in Nevada City, and I had entered into what's called Babaji's cave up there. It is literally a cave. It's underground that people built some years ago. So you walk in underground, and there's a beautiful altar in there, and you can imagine that you're in Babaji's cave. I think there are many of us who have had very deep meditations in there. While I was in there this day, though, it came to me. I don't know what the exact words are for that, but those realizations that we have that we just know are true in the moment. And it came that there were a certain number of big changes that would happen in our church here in Palo Alto, and that some of the ideas for what those changes were to look like were coming to me right then. And I was just noticing how much things were going to change. There was no doubt in my mind that it was true. And then, not that much later, I felt the masters with me. I mean, to be exact, I felt all of the masters behind me. And I could say the thought came to me, but it wasn't really a thought. I feel like they transmitted this beautiful message and knowing to me. And they said, what's being asked of you is a lot, but you must always remember who is actually doing this. Meaning, God is the doer, Shanti. This is not you. Your job is to stay and be the open channel that you can. And then it came, and if you forget, find the nearest altar. It was so beautiful, but let me make a little fun of myself in this moment. For the first 2 years after that, whenever I would feel overwhelmed, I would run and find an altar. I would literally, if I was at home, I would go to my altar. If I was at the church, because they told me, find the nearest altar. But another morning in meditation, it came, you are being so silly. It's not that altar, it's this altar. It's the altar in your heart. It's where you can really find the divine and all of these masters, and then they'll remind you, we're doing this, not you. And when I was listening the other day to this talk that Swamiji was giving, where he said, we will come into that, in Dwapara, where we realize that the worshiping that we do, the praying, the meditating, we'll be doing it inwardly. That's how we'll be able to have intuition and divine perception. It will be in our heart. And that experience that was given to me just came back to me. I felt so grateful. I mean, in the moment, it just brought tears to my eyes, just how present the masters are, and for all of us, all the time, as soon as we can know that and reach to them for that guidance, or at least be open to it. And I feel in this time of this pandemic and of sheltering in and staying in, how much easier it is to access the reality of Dwapara Yuga, that it's much more at the energetic level, this whole period of time where there are new ideas about how things will happen, where there are new capabilities. You know, when Sri Yukteswar was about to write his book, The Science of Religion, he stopped and he prayed first. I don't know if that's actually in The Science of Religion, or so if he said it, or if Master Swamiji said it. And he asked that as all of these new understandings of how things are, the science of it, but also the deeper meaning of it, he prayed that it could be guided by divine wisdom. Those were his words as this was brought to the world. And then soon after that, he was shown an image of Yogananda, who would be the one who would come and who would bring these teachings, not just to the West, certainly to the West, but really bring these teachings back out into the world. And not just the teaching, again, not just the science of it, but to show us how to make these teachings practical, how to bring them into everyday life. And that's what he did. He came to the United States, he crisscrossed this country, he gave thousands of lectures, he wrote books, he taught first all over the country, then of course to his monks and nuns in his ashrams. He got all of these teachings out in every way he could. First of all, that everything that we're longing for is beyond form. He started teaching us through his energization exercises, how do we remember that we are energy? and to raise our consciousness for those of us who are listening, who are tuning to plug in today or at any time to the wealth of these teachings, so that we begin to retrace our steps back up our astral spine from form to energy to superconsciousness, which is what Yogananda came to show us, that everything is energy. And I think I said this to you the other day, in the midst of all of these energetic revelations comes the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can always be transformed. Always. That is such a beautiful promise to us. Nothing that we are now, none of the thoughts that we have, none of the limitations, none of the sadness, none of the fear. We could go on and on. Even the happiness that we feel in the world or of the world, nothing needs to stay as it is. We are energy. Energy can always be transformed. And Yogananda came and he gave this to us. And he showed us, look at how we can apply it in this way, in education. Look at how we can apply it to every relationship. Let me speak to you about marriage. Let me speak to you about how to pray. Let me teach you the technique of Kriya Yoga. Let me show you how to go in and have the experience of God being everywhere and in everyone. So he has been this great, great gift to all of us, and he comes to us to say to us and to show us that where we choose to hold our mind, our consciousness, has everything to do with what we can perceive and how we can perceive it. That the more that we raise that energy up, just focusing our energy at the point between the eyebrows, that we are now in this age of Dwapara. It was much harder before. I was thinking this morning of St. Francis. I love St. Francis. I love his energy. I'm sure many of us do. And I frequently teach classes about his life. You know, he was here teaching in the 1200s at a time where trade was just being discovered. Ships were going all over the world. People were for the first time being shown magnificent fabrics of beautiful colors, of foods that were exotic, that they had never seen. They were being given the opportunity to experience art in material form, all of this. And it was just a time of, oh wow, look at everything that's here on the material plane. And there was Francis trying to say, none of that matters. Very hard. Jesus was up against some of the same lower levels of consciousness, because it was Kali Yuga. It was form, it was hard, it was stone, it was duller minds, as I said before. But Yogananda, the avatar of Dwapara Yuga, is here at a time where consciousness is flowing. We are in ascending Dwapara Yuga. You know, Dwapara Yuga is going to go from really, after that transition, 1900. So we're not that far into it. Hence, we see everything we see in the world. But we're heading up. That's good news. But it goes to 4100. So we have a way to go. But we have incarnated now because of that shift in consciousness. It's not just new things are possible in the world all the discoveries that are being made. But our consciousness has shifted. We are able to perceive things, each of us, that to a large degree, nothing's ever 100%. Not with the yugas, not with the gunas, not with anything. There's people of different levels of consciousness in every yuga. But to a much larger degree now, those of us who are here and those of us who will be incarnated until the year 4100, we have the ability with our consciousness to perceive things in a different way than the vast majority of people could have before. So we have to realize that we have been given the gift of incarnating now. When Master came and he said, the time for knowing God has come, he meant that, of course, in many ways, but in some very deep way, it's because we have been gifted with the possibility of knowing God, just like in that story that I just shared. I've had so many beautiful experiences, and I know I'm not alone in that. Experiences of the possibility of what can happen the closer we get to remembering that every spark of everything that's manifested in front of our eyes holds that divine spark at its core, center everywhere, circumference nowhere, Master said to us. It means keep coming in, keep using every opportunity that we have to show ourselves, oh, the divine is within. That's where I need to be. With all of the suffering that's going on now, even right alongside of every bit of it, because that's what the divine is. It's all of the suffering and all of the joy, all in the very same instant in time. Part of what Dwapara Yuga is about, part of what our path is about, is being solution-oriented, not problem-oriented. Solution-oriented is expansive. It allows for possibility. It's about hope. It's about entering a consciousness of pure joy where everything resolves itself back into that place of oneness with the divine. Even today, even right now, we are being given that opportunity as much as it's ever been given to us. And then, along with our teachings, along with everything and all of the magnificent ways that Swamiji made it so digestible. If you listen to his treasures talks, one talk after another, he's telling us the same thing. Change right now, transformation. But for this moment were we born. It's here, it's ours, because we're devotees of this Master who came specifically, not coincidentally, to prepare us for this moment that we could say every day when we wake up, I am a child of God. I am energy. Energy can be transformed. I am going to expedite my path. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to learn Kriya Yoga. He came and he said, this is the airplane route to God. Yet another creation in this time of energy. Jets, a jet form. So if you don't have Kriya, now is the time. Find out, how can you get Kriya? How can we tap into this rapid, escalating, expanding, expansive moment in time and find our way to God right now? God bless you all.